I didn't introduce myself, but I'll tell you where this talk came from. Very recently, Mark Hazel, Mr. Devoxx himself, reached out and said, "Hey, do you fancy doing some more Devoxx program committee stuff?" And I said, "Yes, that would be good." And so I volunteered to help with the Java track and get that to happen. And then I'm thinking, we've been doing all this stuff about speaker training and trying to get people to conferences, and here is a great opportunity. So that's what this is about. Says he. Yes. So if you haven't already submitted a talk to Devoxx, why not? But it's, as you can see, look, it's November, so it could be in person. In fact, the plan is for it to be hybrid, so it'll be a bit of online and a bit of physical. I haven't quite figured out whether there's online only and physical only. There seems to be some sense that a lot of the talks may just be broadcast, but we haven't had that level of discussion yet, but we will soon. The point is, the CFP ends the end of the month, 31st of May. So I thought it would be a good time just to have a conversation about how you get yourself well positioned to do a great talk at Devoxx UK in November, assuming that you want to do that. Okay, so I have slides because I wasn't sure how big this was going to be, but just shout. If you have questions, just shout. Otherwise, it's me talking and you listening, which is boring. I want you to do some talking. Okay, right. So there are 4 things we're going to go through. We're going to talk about what Devoxx is for those who don't know. We're going to talk about what's in it for you to submit to Devoxx. Then we're going to talk about how you master the art of submitting talks to conferences. And then there's a Q&A. But if at any point you want to ask a question, then just say so and just blat, right? Because otherwise it'll just be boring. Right, okay. So first off, what is Devoxx? So I do assume that you all know what Devoxx is, but if it not, just to recap, it is a developer conference that was started out of the Belgian jug a long time ago and has propagated around the world. Devoxx UK with the LJC was started 9-10 years ago, which is just horrific to think. It is, in my opinion, it's the best Java conference in the UK, and quite often Devoxx UK is very close to the top of my list of the best Java conferences in the world, right? But it is community driven, and it's all about community. So yes, money needs to exchange hands, but at the end of the day, it's all about community. Topics. Sorry, yes.
Sorry, I'm just going to shout in with a question, as you said.
Yeah.
Why is it the best in the UK, in your opinion? What makes it better than others, or at least what makes it so good?
In the UK, in terms of developer conferences for Java, there aren't that many alternatives. Jack's group do 2, but they're a bit businessy and they just don't have the same sense of fun and madness that Devoxx does. Devoxx is, if you go to a Devoxx conference and you immerse yourself in it, you come out wiser and a lot more tired, and you have met so many great people who are doing so many amazing things. And I think the atmosphere and the content and the networking that you get up being at Devoxx, not speaking, is just amazing compared to everything else. I mean, you can meet people from all around the world at Devoxx UK, and it's just good. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, mate.
Okay, right. So it's not just Java. It used to be mostly Java, but now it's not Java because developers don't just do Java. So it's Java and whatever else is on your mind. Okay, and we'll talk about that later. And it isn't just about how you write code. It's about how you decide how you're going to write code. It's about how you team. It's about whether you do testing this way or whether you design your systems this way. There are all these different tracks that you can probably work out mostly what they mean. Mind the Geek is for the that's amazing but geeky, and Mind the Geek is great. I used to run Mind the Geek. I'm not doing it this year. But Mind the Geek is where the Raspberry Pis and the VRs and the ARs and the mouse organs and all sorts of stuff turn up. But the other ones, I think you can guess what it's about. Tech for Good is about environmental things and just generally where we're using tech for the betterment of human beings and the planet. And the rest, I think you can guess. So your choice of subject is quite wide, right? So it's not only the tech, it's also how you do the tech, what you think of the tech, what you think of the people you work with, how do you grow your teams, how do you get, how do you hire more people effectively? You know, whatever it is, there's always a space for you to have those conversations. So this is from the website, and a few of the slides are from the website. But what I want to stress, and we'll talk about it again in a minute, is the thing about DevOps is it really is a community effort. Money does have to exchange hands because this, you know, you have to hire a venue, you have to buy swag, you have to pay for catering, security, you name it. Money has to happen. But at the end of the day, the primary thing is to help developers be successful. It's about what it's necessary to exchange ideas, information, give people hands-on, that sort of stuff. Right? So it's by developers for developers. And I think even Mark can write code, which is, you know, good. So I said that, and it is about making people successful. I mean, that's my term, but I'm not really sure I have a better word than I really enjoy doing things that help other people be more successful, more productive, more skilled, whatever. But it's actually making your life better in one way or the other. So you want to be more successful, and that's what DevOps is about. And because the success that we're talking now is all about technical reputation, it's all about how do we facilitate and grow you as a participant, you as a speaker, in terms of building your technical reputation. And because there are so many different ways of technology sets and how you put it all together, all that sort of stuff, DevOps is there to help you navigate through those things. That's one of the things we want to do, is give you insight into all these tech. And again, it's something that you can share. If you have insight into some piece of tech, then come along and talk about it, right? And choices. There's probably the biggest thing we have now compared to what, I don't know, even 10 years ago, is there are so many more choices of tech, because Java developers are no longer writing a bit of Java code that gets deployed to some big app server and that magic happens. Now you're responsible for so much more of how your code actually gets into production, and you have to make choices, you being maybe you as a developer, you as a team leader, you as a development manager. You have to make all these choices about which ones to use. And so all that sort of, should I use this versus this? These are all really important decisions. And that's what DevOps is about, is to help you, work out what works for you. DevOps is not about selling products. It does not matter if you have the best comfy carriage. Yeah, I don't really know what this picture is of, but there we go. But the one thing we are not about is selling products. So we have sponsors and they will have booths, but we don't sell products. It is not a commercial conference. There are other product companies conferences that do that. DevOps is not that. If you turn up and you want to talk about the latest tech that you've got and it's proprietary, you better have a really good story, because it's likely not to get anywhere. And it says, it's not even how good your technology is. You may think yours is great, and that's good, you can come along about that, but that's not really what DevOps is about. DevOps, you sharing about your technology is what it's about, but actually, as I said, it's all about this. What we want you to do, what DevOps is about helping people be successful in any way that you can. Okay? So more words. It's about sharing, educating, helping others along their journey. That's what it's all about. It is about this shared passion that we have for the tech and helping each other learn, discover, move just slightly further forward, you know, and we'll talk about why that's good for you in a minute. But that's what it's about. And most importantly for Devoxx, it's about having fun. So yeah, that's Holly doing a talk that's about having fun at Devoxx. But it's not Devoxx UK, but there we go. Okay, and there are other examples. Yes, and last year we had a DeLorean. Not quite a real one, as in it didn't time travel, but we did have one. And you go up to it and it's just perfect. Mark, I'm not even sure where Mark got it from, but one you get at Devoxx is an immense sense of fun and a load of stuff happening. And if you have fun, interesting talks, they're valid too, okay? But, today, next slide, please. Okay. Unfortunately, it costs, right? So this is where you have to take a little bit of step back, and this is where you have to start thinking about, if you want to get to a conference, of any conference, you have to start thinking a little bit more commercial. So at one level, there's a bar here that we should talk about. When you submit to Devoxx, you are going to be one of 1,000 submissions. Okay, and there's going to be 1,000 people at the conference. All right, and it says we probably are going to have 100 people. 12 tracks, 3 days. There we are. There's the combinations. And so if you're going to submit, you've got to be like one of 10 probably. You've got to be the top of 10 to get in, right? And what the conference has got to do is balance all the ideas that we've just been talking about giving you all the fun that you need, the access to the information, the people, in a way that makes that conference sustainable. Because the most important thing is that it's a success. It's a success commercially for the sponsors because they help fund this. Okay, and if the conference is a success, then we'll do it again next year. So that we have this little problem of trying to balance sharing all the information we want, but doing it in a way that means that the audience come along and go, that was good. And the sponsors come along and go, this audience is great. So the sponsors want a good set of people, the audience, they want a good audience. And so we want a good audience, so therefore we want good talks, right? And so this is the connection. When you submit a talk, you've got to understand that you're competing, but you're competing for a good reason, okay? Right, but I've got this slide here twice because I think this is really important. This isn't therefore saying we're only going to take the best speakers. We're only going to take the international ones, the ones with a great reputation. That's not true. We will definitely take people like that because they have a good thing to say and they have a good way of saying it. But that would dry us up in terms of people very quickly if all we did was have the usuals. So that's why we're always looking for new talent. We're always looking for how do we get more people to come along and who've got new ideas and new ways of talking about things and sharing stuff. And that's what I think we've said on the LJC sessions before. Everybody started it somewhere, you know, Trisha, Holly, Martijn, Simon, Ben. I mean, you know, you can list them. And they've all gone on to cool things in their career. And pretty much they all started by doing some talk at the RJC, and then they go to a conference and they talk about a conference, right? So everybody starts somewhere. And so Devoxx is also this place for trying to grow new talent. So if I don't say it again, I will say it now. If you've never spoken at a conference and you submit to a conference and you say, I'm a new speaker, if it's a developer conference, they're going to try hard to give you the opportunity, okay? And that's the same with Devoxx. If you put in your submission that you're a new speaker, then we'll do what we can to try and give you the opportunity to speak. I mean, there's no guarantee, but we want to do that because you never know. You know, you may be the next world-class Venkat. Got to start somewhere. Any questions so far? No, everyone's going.
Just one.
Yes.
What do you class, or what do you think classes as a new speaker? I saw the next one's come back. What do you think classes as a new speaker when you're submitting something to Devoxx? Because Devoxx, you know, that it has this reputation, like you've rightly gone through. It's one of the best Java conferences in the UK. So is a new speaker somebody who's done one lightning talk? Is a new speaker somebody who, like myself, has spoken at a few user groups such as the LJC and the Manchester Java community? Is it they've done a conference somewhere else? Kind of, what does that scale
That's a
look
good
like?
question. I sort of say that it's whether you think you're a new speaker.
Okay.
It's more to do with your confidence level. Obviously, if you've never done it, you're a new speaker. But if you feel a large amount of trepidation at the idea of standing up in front of 100 people, right, I mean a lot of trepidation, then I think you're a new speaker.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
But the nerves never go away, just to clear that one up.
Well, they do. Well, they do go away. They just
we just get better at handling them, I think.
Yes, they change. Yeah, they change. And it's like everything. You just become a little bit more experienced at it. So I think you probably know whether you feel you're a new speaker.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So now, what's in it for you? Why should you do this? Well, I have some words. You can read them because I know you will. But it's the thing I say to people is that the reason that you should do public speaking is because it changes your life. And I've said that multiple times, and I know it's true because I've seen it happen. At the end of the day, the way that you grow your career is by communicating and becoming an influencer. Right? If you want your business to do something, you have to influence them and you have to learn to communicate. And those skills, which are about learning how to structure your story, how to present it clearly, how to deal with the questions, those bits and pieces, that experience and skill comes out so much if you do public speaking. And if you talk at a conference, then the whole process of trying to figure out what you want to talk about and laying it out and structuring it a logical way and communicating is the microcosm. So it's sort of, and it feeds on itself. So if you're successful, then our conference is successful. And if you're successful there, then you're visible. And then you start building a reputation because you're talking about something that people care about. And then you get invited to talk about it somewhere else. And so that grows your skills and your experience. And it becomes this virtuous circle.
I got another question.
That's why I think it's so valuable. And even if you only do it once or twice, then the experience will just do you really good if you carry on not speaking at conferences.
What?
Okay. Yes.
You're
going to heckle then, Helen?
Yeah, always. Does Devoxx only take talks that are brand new, or can you have given them at other conferences? Can you have given them at Java user groups where it's been recorded and posted on YouTube? What's the rule?
So the answer is we don't want just new talks. There are some conferences that just want new talks. And I think that is always a mistake. What we want is good talks. And so if you've done a talk at a user group and you have a video, then you've got a great example of the talk that you can share when you submit your talk. So if we only ever took new talks, we'd have a real job trying to figure out, whether you're a good speaker or not. I would say if you've done it 50 times, then you probably want to think about redoing it for Devoxx, because obviously at a user group, you've got 30 people maybe. And if you're at a conference, you might have more. But actually, there's no real barrier on that. We're gonna look at you as a person. We're going to look at your submission. We're going to look for all the evidence out there that shows that you can talk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So approach. So approach is broken into multiple sections because it's actually quite detailed. How do you think about structuring your talk? So the first thing is to step back and don't go, I have a great idea for a talk, I'm going to submit it, until you've thought a lot about how it will resonate with your audience. So often people create talks that are more about them than the subject they're giving. So you have to think about your audience. Now, it's important also to consider that you don't have to be as I said, so you don't have to be Olympic champion to talk about sport. Again, people get put off because they feel they have to be the expert in a subject. You know, I can't talk about driving because I'm not a Formula One racing car driver. It's like, no, you talk about what you know. I always say talk about through your experience, whether it's experience in that you've been researching stuff and you found things, or it's something that you've done. It's if you start off with what you know, then that subject, it's sort of already built into your brain, but and if you don't represent yourself as anything other than I'm talking about my experience and what I've learned, then the selection committee will see that you're being honest about this, because sometimes you get submissions that sound like the person is going to talk really deeply about something. And then you do a bit of research, you look at a video of them talking and you go, I don't really think this person understands the subject enough. Whereas if you talk about my experiences or, yeah, that's probably the best way of doing it, but what I've learned, and you want to share what you know, then it's much more obvious to people that that's what you're doing. And of course, you are the expert of your experience. So think about that. Think about that any part of your experience is valid. It just does not matter where you are in the cycle, right? So any part of the journey that you're on, any part of the technology journey, the career journey, whatever it is, you've got an experience and somebody else is on the same place or about to start that, to make that step, which is why anything that you've got that could help somebody else be more successful is valid to consider submitting. Right. I said that's basically what I said here. It's for many people, they just don't have time to do the learning that you may just have done. So what you can do is you can help short circuit. You can help them go from nothing to something faster than if they'd done it themselves, because you've taught them a little bit. Okay. And if they haven't started, then talk about choices. What choice? You made a choice. There's something in your life, technology life, where you went, oh, we had to choose between this and this. Then you just explain. You do a talk and you say, we had to choose. My favorite is Maiden versus Gradle, right? Because it just bends people out of shape. But Maiden versus Gradle. And you go, we made this choice. Okay, that's the talk, right? And somebody else will go, oh, I was in that position, so I'm going to do that way. Or no, that's not me, I'm going to go the other way. And you short circuit the whole process of them having to learn something, okay, which is just really valuable. If you've only just touched something, if you've just learned the difference between, I don't know, Java 15 and Java 16, and you've learned out that this class now does something really fantastically new, and you just learnt it, that's a talk, because you're just one step ahead of somebody else. That's a potential talk. You don't have to do big things. You just have to be useful, right? And then if you are way ahead, right, if you've said, hey, we have deployed some massive thing to AWS, whatever the new thing is, you share it. And say, here's what we didn't like. You know, this is what bit us. They're all great. Shortcuts, you know, don't do this because it takes you down this. Go this way instead, right? All those sorts of things. They are so valuable to people. So you just share them. Right? And then if you've actually got to the other end of where you're going to go and you've got a breather, you can take a look and you can say, well, we got here and this is where we think we're going to go next and why. So if you're coming to where we are, you might want to consider whether this is going to go where you want to go the next step. Give people a benefit of your experience and your vision. Okay, so you got that bit. And then you have to talk about, you have to take your experience and then you've got to boil it down to something that's going to fit into the conference. Right? And this is the same for all conferences. There's no expression about Devoxx in this. Right? The detail may change, but the process is pretty much the same. So obviously the first thing you've got to do is, which of the tracks is going to be best for your story? Is it a core Java thing? Or is it about agile development, in which case it's people and culture? Is it a view of, I don't know, you've been sinking battleships with machine learning, okay? Or is that Mind the Geek, or is that data and AI? You have to make those choices. So you've got to research all these tracks and work out what fits for you, because at the end of the day, the selection committee will probably help you move it, or may move it for you if they think it's in the wrong place. Lots of conferences, if they're big, won't do that. So actually what you can do, if you're feeling you're not really sure, submit it to both. And the only reason that can be a bad thing is if you have a limit of the number of talks that you can submit. So Devoxx UK takes 4 from you. So if you submit the same thing twice, then you've got to balance up the probabilities. So anyway, that's your sort of first point. Which of these groups of people do I think this talk is mostly going to be interesting to? Because they're going to select me. That's the first thing. Right? And then you've got to work out the structure, because this is going to influence how you write things. So I'm sorry, loads of words here. This is my groupings. And my theory in terms of how talks are structured, that they pretty much come down to these sorts of groupings. So you can say some things overlap, but actually, if you go off and see good talks, are the ones that get good reviews and get good audiences, they tend to have similar sorts of structures. So the A versus B thing, the comparison, right? We had to make a decision between two things. Here's the pros and cons. That's it. Solid talk. Somebody else is in the same position as you are. You can tell them, hey, it's done. Go this way. And if they connect where they are with where you were, and it works, then they can perhaps make the same decisions. So what else is on there? So that's the same as always like case studies and things like that. People want to know. It's all about short-circuiting the experience. You can say, we were trying to do this, right? If you think about it, that's a really good structural talk, because you can talk about your experience or your company experience in doing something, right? And you can talk about what works and what didn't work and what other people should do and shouldn't do. That's a really solid talk. And if it's the right subject, then that could easily get you accepted. Emerging technologies, if you're lucky enough, and that's the same with Just for Fun, if you're lucky enough to be able to say, I've got a PS5 and I've hacked it, those sorts of things where people are really interested in the latest tech, of course, because we're techies, and anything about, here's what's coming down. So like quantum computing, we had a lot of talks about quantum computing. So quantum computing is emerging technology, and you have a bunch of talks about what you could do with it, if you're right. So those are sorts of things. You can see the groupings here. The version update is the one that you go, well, between 1.1 and 1.2, here's what's new. They're straightforward talks. I think they're really good talks for people who've not done a talk before and are struggling for content. If you want to submit a talk to a conference, then talking about the specific new features in something, and not necessarily all the features, but some key features, and just talking it through and explaining what you could do and can do, that's really good, because they don't need enormous amounts of background and experience. So I think they're quite useful. Of course, if it's your tech, then you're likely to be the person who gets selected, but it's no guarantee. Right, so you've made an idea of what track you want to go to, what group are going to review it. You've got some idea of how you're going to structure the talk so that you can help communicate. And then you have to pick how long you're going to run. How long are you going to spend communicating? So these are the Devoxx ones. I've taken off the keynotes because if you submit, you can submit talks as potential keynotes, but they're very rarely going to get noticed, because mostly, as you can imagine, keynotes, maybe 2 a day, if you're really lucky. Small conferences, 1. So mostly they tend to get selected by the conference organizers. But look, you can see the words. There's different sizes in terms of lengths. So it just depends on the conference as to how long it is, and they have different focuses. So like tools on action, 30 minutes, show people how something works. What's the latest features in IntelliJ? That'd be a great tool and action thing. You know, I'll just do a demo. I'll just talk about it through. That's that. Okay. Ignites are great if you like having. I'm not sure how to describe Ignite talks. If you've not done one, they are fantastic, but they're also the biggest scary thing ever because the slides automatically go forward, and so it doesn't matter how much you've put together a wonderful deck. They go forward every 20 seconds. And believe me, when that happens, you've got to catch up and it exercises your brain. So it's fun. Birds of a feather are talks where there are less focus on, I'm not sure, it's not, I don't want to use the word quality, but birds of a feather, as I said, more informal. Birds of a feather used to be, for a long time at conferences, it was very much like you just have a room and people would turn up. But nowadays they tend to be still a conference talk, but just less formal. The idea is, you know, if we had ties, you could take your ties off. It's that sort of, let's just have a conversation. The other ones, the deep dives, the hands-on labs, etc., mini labs, they're perfectly valid things to you submit, but you have to understand that there are two aspects. One is there are not very many slots of these talks for those scale things, and then you've got to prep for labs. So for instance, if you wanted to run a workshop, then you've got to be able to be certain that you could manage looking after, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 people. So for new speakers, it's probably not where you want to go. New speakers, you probably want to look at the BOFs and the bite sizes and the ignites and the tools on action, those sorts of things. And the conference talks, the main slots are fine as well. So that's your choice as to what you submit, but also you need to understand, and this you can only do by research, is how many of these slots are available at a conference? Because you've got to play your hand to fit in. And so if the conference, Devoxx is 3 days long, I think the first day will be given over to the longer sessions, and then we'll do conference things. Birds and feathers will be in the evening. Some things will be at lunchtime. You can learn out. You've got to figure out how many opportunities there are. So when you're submitting, when you're going to use your 4 slots, which ones are going to work best for you? Right? So it can be complicated. But again, say you're a new speaker, say you're not quite sure, and hopefully people will help you. Right, so you've gone through all that, right? Right, okay, so now you've got to do things because you've made your choices about this is the funneling that I'm just selecting. Now you got to get through the selection process. Okay? So you have got to start writing words about what it is that you're going to be doing. So obviously you need a title and an abstract because you've seen those. You've selected your tracks, you've selected your talk type. You've got to write an elevator pitch, which is 3 lines, 300 characters, right? That's your sales pitch to the selection committee, because there's a bunch of people looking at 1,000+ submissions and making decisions as to which ones they like, which ones they don't. So you've got to get the selection committee's attention before you even get people to turn up and listen to you speak, right? And so you've got to work out what your elevator pitch is. You've got to make a decision as to what level of audience you're targeting. Are you targeting people who are introductory level to very detailed level? Pros and cons as to which one you go for. I always say for technical conferences, if you're going to do one of these, go for beginner. Assume that your audience knows nothing. That's a much better place to be than I'm going to do a really deep dive about the internals of Kubernetes, right? And therefore my audience needs to be very technical, because you'll probably have hardly anybody turn up, right? Because the audience may go, yeah, it's too technical. You know, that's not me. So you have to do that. Notes, structure, outline. There's always more things that you can explain. Lots of conferences nowadays want you to almost lay out page by page what's in your presentation. But if you don't know yet, which is quite reasonable, then you at least have to outline some abstract, some sequence of things that you're going to cover. And again, that's to tell us as the selection committee that you've thought about what you want to talk about and you've thought about how you're going to communicate it. Okay. Photo and biography. Yes, photo to prove that you are human, just in case. Biography is important because the biography lets us understand how close your life is to the talk you want to do. So if you say, all I ever work on is .NET and I'm going to do a talk about Java, we might go, where's the connection? Right? But if you go, I'm a hacker and I love .NET, but I spent all my time putting Java on Raspberry Pis, and that's in your bio, and then you want to do a talk about Raspberry Pis, there's the connection. So your biography is there to help us understand more about you as a person, but also to get some sense of how good you're going to be at the subject. Okay. The videos, any videos of any of you speaking anywhere, doesn't have to be on the topic that you're presenting, are gold. Because at the end of the day, if you're a new speaker, then we need to understand whether we think that you have the skills to present. Now, obviously, if you're a new speaker, then you get enormous amounts of leeway. And what we'll be doing is to see that you've done it. If you've got a video of you speaking, then we can assess, to be quite blunt about it, sometimes we're assessing whether or not we think the audience will be able to understand you. But sometimes it's just a matter of getting a sense of, well, look, we saw you on you did a video at a jug and you were really, really nervous. So, but you're a new speaker. Okay, fine, we'll do what we can to help you. But a lot of the times it's also about how interested you are as a speaker, right? Because if you think about it, we do need interesting speakers. We want people who are passionate about the subject, because otherwise we'll just go out and get a bunch of lecturers in the local university and they can just bore the audience, right? We want you to have this. Wave your hands, okay? Right, so all of this stuff is what your talk submission is. It's not title abstract, it's all this other information that you've got to provide, right? And it's got to be, deep breath, entertaining, inspirational, informative, insightful, authentic, and honest. Right? We will assess you. Not there's a checklist, but it's all these things. I told you that we're having to put together a conference that is self-sustaining, and so we want speakers who know their subject, but are also entertaining, lowercase e, inspirational, informative, etc., and honest. We don't have a problem with you turning up and saying, I've used this AWS thing for 10 minutes. Let me tell me what I've learned. That's fine. But if you turn up and your bio says you're an AWS expert for 50 years, well, you're not being honest, and we probably will not be interested in your talk. Okay. But there's nothing wrong with being honest, because that's what this is all about. Yes, so bio and blogs go with it. Yeah, if you have blogs, LinkedIn pages and stuff like that, what's this about? It's all about showing that the talk that you're submitting, you're the best one. Now, you're probably the best one anyway, because it's your talk, but you're helping us understand that this is going to be a good talk, because we believe that you are going to better deliver what you said you'd deliver, and that we can see that even if at the end of the day it doesn't go the way, it goes according to plan, there's some technical issues, whatever, that doesn't matter. We're looking at this whole thing as a whole and going, that's going to work. Okay, good subject, good speaker, looks like they know what they're doing, looks like they can talk to some degree in front of an audience, and we think the audience will be interested both from your subject and you as a person. Okay. Right. And you haven't even written words, and then you've got to write words. Okay. And this, the best bit in all of this is almost all the words that you write are going to be to get through the selection committee because they're making those decisions. And then what you've written is going to go on to the electronic thing that the conference uses to list all the stuff. And believe me, your audience spends hardly any time at all looking at your title and abstract. The majority of people at conferences choose their next talk just before it starts. And so, I mean, some people are very good at planning it out, but most people just choose, right? They're like, okay, what's next? And they look at three things. So you, just from a point of experience, you can have the best talk ever, but if you're scheduled at the same time as Venkat, everybody's going to be going to that, okay? So sometimes you don't get the best experience as a speaker at a conference because you're up against the other people. But at the end of the day, you need to have that wonderful title and a wonderful abstract that's going to get people into your room. You're going to get through the selection committee. They're going to go, yeah, we believe in you. And then your audience is going to turn up, and you have to just do your best to make it punchy. So punchy and intriguing wins every time, okay? Because you just make people go to the next step and read a bit more. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I have more pages, but any questions so far?
Yes. I have a couple. Firstly, on the elevator pitch, you mentioned 300 characters. So yeah. I've started writing my elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And in my head, because it's like elevator pitch, I'm like, okay, I've got 30 seconds for this. So I was going for 30 seconds of speech. I may need to cut mine down a little bit. Are you saying 300 characters, i.e. 2 to 3 sentences, is bang on the money, and that's what we should be aiming for?
Well, let's put it like this. You have, when they say elevator pitch, it usually is meant to be like no more than a paragraph.
Okay.
Some of the systems that you submit to, they will literally give you only 300 characters, including spaces.
Okay. Yes, would have been fine, definitely. Okay. The next one was on when you are adding you're evidencing that you've thought about your talk when you're doing the submission.
Yeah.
What's best? So I have gone through this process. I've thought about my talk, and I splurged out 35 odd slides yesterday, and they're just titles. Like there's nothing in them. Yep. They're just, I want to talk about this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
Attach the keynote. That works, or is it easier for the panel to just read notes, do you think? Is there any kind of preference there?
Some people like bullet points. That usually there's a box that says notes, and Devoxx has got a box that says notes.
Yeah, it has, yeah.
So you could say, my talk will consist of the following points, you know, and just list the points. And if it's a logical order, good, but at least you're demonstrating that you have thought about the structure of your talk.
Yeah, okay, and it won't box you in too much if you later change your mind, a bit of tweaking.
No, that's the advanced school of speaking at presentations, is when you submit title and abstract on the fly and then trying to figure out what it's about later.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I was going to say something about the, what was it? So the thing about writing the bullet points about what's in your talk is just at a high level. The other thing is it should make you think about whether the talk is going to fit into the timescales.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because if you've got a 15-minute talk, then it's one bullet, maybe two. You know, yeah. Okay. Right. So I have lots of words about abstracts, but mostly they're probably quite straightforward. And as I said, you're writing this advert, and you're trying to convince people. So you see things like, I always try and make mine very as dynamic as possible, but it's like, what's in it for the audience? You know, we said this is about helping people move along. Be clear about what people are going to learn and what they're going to take away from it. However you write it, you want to give across that session that sense that there is, you know, clear learning outcomes or takeaways. Yeah, that's number one. Don't use buzzwords. you need to connect, because obviously the abstract is there, what should have the words in that mean people understand that you're talking about a particular thing and not some very generic thing. You know, so if you get, so talks like, I will tell you how to deploy your Java code to the cloud, right? That's not very useful because that's not specific enough. But we'll talk to you about how to deploy your Java to the cloud using XYZ is a much more specific thing. You know, by the end of this talk, people will be able to those things. You don't have to write it like that, but it should be in your head that you've got those, that you expect those things to happen. What else? Yeah, what's in it for me? It's all this: connect with the audience, figure out what they want to hear from you, not what you want to say. What is it that you think somebody will learn? And it's really hard, but you have to sort of abstract literally from what you want to talk about, what the core bits are. What is it that would make somebody value coming to your talk? Other things there? Yeah, tags. Yes, if you have conference things that you put in tags, if there's a space for tags, use it, because people search on them. And that's mostly for audience when they're using the apps or whatever. And positive active words: learn, understand, see, hear. You'll see those in my abstracts a lot. The audience will learn this. They will see this. They will hear this. Okay. What else can we tell you? Lots of don'ts. Don't be offensive. Well, don't be offensive deliberately. Try not to use swear words. Don't use swear words. Anything like that. Don't ever put in a product pitch. Just not worth your while at all. Okay. Some of these things on here, like don't mix your technical pitch for the session with the pitch of the presenter. Some conferences get really, really unhappy if in the notes you put something that they feel should be in the abstract or vice versa. A lot of the time, I'm not that bothered if it's not too overt, but some conferences have quite stickly rules about this. Devoxx isn't like that. Devoxx will look at your submission, and if we think, for instance, the abstract is okay but could do a bit of work, we'll let you know. Right? If we think you could tighten up, we'll communicate with you. Yes, don't use words like rockstar, ninja, pirate, elite, or anything. It says unless it's satire or it's true. So if you are a pirate, then you're allowed to say you're a pirate, but under no other circumstances. Okay. Live coding. Do not attempt live coding unless you are very comfortable. And you have to be really good to be live coding, because so many things go wrong. I cannot tell you the number of times you see people fail because nerves get in the way, or something goes wrong with the code, or they're relying on a cloud service or networking, all sorts of stuff. So if you really, really have to do live coding, then that's fine. That's your choice. Just be really careful about what you're going to do, and try and minimize the amount of live coding you're going to do so you're not switching around. I did a live coding set at Java 1 a few years ago, and I did 6 demos. And after demo 3, I'd completely lost the plot as to what code was what. And it wasn't that good a result. Get your abstract right. So here is a before and after. So the top one is an abstract was given to me by when I was working at IBM. And then this is what I'm going to submit. Okay. And you go, okay, the machine built for your code, and it's about mainframe. And it says this would include topics like blah, blah, blah. And you go, yes, I'm sure somebody else who's got a mainframe, or maybe somebody produces a mainframe, would love to see this talk. But I sat down with him and with this guy and said, well, what's different? And we talked about it, and it came out that actually these mainframes are designed to stand massive earthquakes, right? And has these amazing things. So we pulled out the valuable piece for the subject, not the stuff that the writer thought was important to start off with, which was all the key point, the buzz stuff. Okay, that's what your product team want you to say, but it's not really interesting. You may end up talking about it, but actually find the fun bit. Yeah, and that's probably almost it. Okay, so your abstract as a selection committee is important, obviously. If it's too long or too short, you know, then we may have problems with it. It has to be just right. And it's also what your audience is going to read. It is your promise. If you write an abstract and you get accepted, and then you go and do a completely different talk, nobody will look quite kindly on you, right? So it is really important that you make sure that if you are not quite clear about what you're talking about, that you make your abstract flexible so that you can have some wiggle room, right? And that's quite okay. But if you go, I'm going to do a talk about Java, and you stand up and talk about .NET, well, that's not going to go around down well for two reasons at a Java conference. But if you get that reputation, people will not well, they just won't take you, right? Because you're not playing by the rules, right? So you're going to make a promise to the audience that you're going to, if selected, this is what you're going to talk about, okay? And that's probably the most important thing. And there we go. There's the last page, right? So what can I say? I've done all the talking, apart from Helen. Any more questions? Come on, give me some Q&A. Who really wants to go talk at Devoxx now? Who's on mute?
Can we do virtual hands up maybe if people don't want to come on camera? And they can show us.
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
Yep. So last year I submitted and got denied and didn't really get any feedback. I was wondering if there's a way for kind of during the submission process to get some earlier, faster feedback. Is there kind of a group of people that I can say, hey, I've submitted this. Do you think I could change it or move it around?
I'm going to say yes. If you ask for feedback, you'll get feedback.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out where I would tell you to go to ask for feedback. I'm not quite sure for Devoxx. I would say the simple answer is you can ask me.
Okay.
But if you can, I mean, most of the conferences will give you feedback. I'm just thinking it is hard to get it. It's not. Sometimes the only reason that you didn't get selected is that there were 5 people doing the same talk and you were number 2, you know, and sometimes there's nothing that people would say to you. They won't say to you, or you can improve it. They're just going, what you did was good, but we thought this guy was better. Yeah. Yeah. But if you submit and you don't, and you want feedback, then just let me know and we can always get you feedback.
Cool. Excellent. Cheers.
I remember when we did the panel event, Steve, when we had Dan Hardiker on, I think he said he could count on 2 hands the amount of times anyone's ever asked him for feedback. So I think a lot of people, Nick, probably share that, you know, get rejected, don't know why, but he said like he's always happy to go into detail as to why things are rejected. So yeah, definitely echo what Steve says on that.
Yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of reasons you get rejected, but if you've got a solid talk and you've got some demonstration that you can speak, then that it's just going to be down to either somebody else is doing it. We think somebody else is doing a better talk about the subject that you're talking about, and it may be a different subject because there's only so many slots. That's the usual reason, and occasionally it's just simply we just don't have enough space, and that's a real shame, because what I found with Devoxx is you end up with a longer list. So the way the process works is that each of the track leads comes up with a set of candidates, talks, a certain number of talks depending on the talk type. So we'll do so many bite sizes and so many conferences, and that will be agreed up front, and then we'll do that. And then there may be a bit of horse trading, And so you end up with going, okay, we've got 3 slots for, I know, 6 conference slots, and we've got 10 talks that we really like. They all scored the best because they all get scored. And then we have a conversation, we try and whittle it down. And occasionally, well, more than occasionally, quite often you end up with 2 people and you go, you got to make a choice. And so we angst over it. Right. But that's just life. Yes. Nothing personal. Though I think, we're going to see what Helen does. What are you submitting, Helen?
What's the name of my talk? Or
yeah,
currently it is called Writing Code is Easy, Being a Great Developer is Hard.
So I would say, just so everybody understands, is that on Devoxx, if you are, we do not vote for people who work for the same company. We abstain because that's the way. You're not supposed to really sort of champion your colleagues. You can always abstain about somebody, but other than that, we vote, and everybody can vote against any talk. So it's not like you're trying to convince the track lead only. Everybody votes, and then we'll look at the votes. And there also is this thing called the golden ticket, which is a process where people who've bought the sort of early bird tickets, they also, I think it's the first 100 people, they are also allowed to participate in the voting process, and they get to see the talks and they vote too as well. And that's always interesting because almost always the golden ticket voters have a completely different view of your talk than the selection committee. But obviously we take this into account because that's really valuable. Anyway, what else can we say?
Steve, Carsten's got his hand up just quickly.
Go on.
If you were going to bounce onto something else.
No.
No. I was just saying that I want to submit something to Devoxx. I don't have a question.
Sorry, mate. Ignore me then.
Steve, I have a question actually. So if anyone's on the call and they're thinking, yes, I want to do this, what is the one thing you would say they need to go away and do, or they should go away and do this weekend?
That's a very good question. I think if you've got an idea, then go away and write out the bullet points for what you think you want to cover. Get in your head a very clear sequence of things that you want to say, because once you've got that, then the rest will come with it. This whole thing is a process of distilling something that you've got experience down to a talk and down to 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 50 minutes. So I'd say the most important thing to do is to get clarity in your own head as to what it is that you are going to talk about and what that takeaway is. Right? I think that's the most, once you get that, I think everything else tends to come from it.
Great, thank you.
So like this talk started, because I can't, this talk started, said he, I'm sure I can show you the page, hold on. With that page, I went, what am I trying to do here? These are the 4 things I want to do. And so that's it. Oh, so I'll end by saying that this structure also lets you work out what your message is, because if you don't tell people what the message is, they'll take their own message away, and it may not be what you expect. So it is very important that you are very clear in your head, and you're clear all the way through this, what it is that your audience is going to get out of this. Okay, so I expect to see you all submitting to Devoxx UK. Yeah.
Steve, just quickly, Jeremy's asked, and I was wondering as well, are the slides available that you've got? Because obviously there were some really useful ones about the structure.
Yeah, I will put these up on SlideShare somewhere.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just going to add as well something, as Nick said about the reviewing the abstracts. If there is anything that we can do, either Steve, myself, Dom, we are all desperate to get more speakers onto the circuit. Yep. People that have given lightning talks maybe don't quite feel ready yet. Like I often hear that. or haven't got the time to really think about the subject. If there is a specific stumbling block that you're facing, we have the Aspiring Speakers group for anyone that's not in that group at the moment, which is about 80 people that are interested in the space. We have a group of mentors who are all happy to be connected to somebody that wants to do this. We have so many resources and things around. So if anyone's sitting there and thinking, oh, I want to, but I'm just not sure for one particular reason, no matter what that reason is, then we will put the work into finding either a connection to someone to giving to connect you to the advice or the help or the person that will make that less of a problem. So honestly, speak to myself, speak to Steve, speak to Dom, whoever you want to speak to, and yeah, we'll do that. So
and Kirsten's pointed out that since I put this talk together, which was this morning, that the CFP has moved on. So is it really June the 15th? Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So yes, we will help you whenever we can. Get hold of me on Slack on the LJC one if you want help with refining abstracts or just chatting it through. Everybody's got a story, and I'm more than happy to help you find it. Cool.
Bill. Thanks, gang. Thanks everyone for coming on board.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Any final questions at all before we let Steve go? No, we're good.
Cool.
Good. All right, cool. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Bye
See
then.
you soon. Cheers.
Bye.